Today on Deep Tracks, we cover Skid Row. Now, Skid Row was a great band out of the late 80s, fronted by one of the best singers of all time, Sebastian Bach. Their debut album is arguably one of the best debut albums of all time, and their sophomore album, Slave to the Grind, was the first heavy metal album to debut at number 1 on the Billboard charts. But, like a lot of bands during this era, internal trouble and egos brought Skid Row down before they ever got started. Skid Row and Sebastian Bach parted ways after just 3 albums, and they would find a new singer in Johnny Solinger, and he would front the band until 2015, but he would have to leave the band for health issues. Skid Row and Sebastian Bach continued to refuse to reunite, with Bach doing solo tours and Skid Row continuing to tour and put out new music. With all that said, we will be concentrating on Skid Row's Sebastian Bach era in this video only. I will say that I absolutely love Skid Row and consider them to be one of my favorite bands, but I cannot get into any of the material after Bach left the band. It is like a completely separate band in my mind, and Skid Row died back in 1995 with the album Subhuman Race. I am always willing to learn more Skid Row and give them a chance, so please leave a comment down below on a song or two that I should listen to from the new Skid Row era. And while you're at it, drop us a like and a subscribe, and hit that bell so you're alerted of new Deep Track videos. Okay, so let's start with our essential Skid Row songs. I picked 7 songs that I figured everyone would know by now. If you don't recognize any of them, please add them to your playlist, give them a listen. They're pretty much essential Skid Row songs and really good rock and roll songs. Obviously, I Remember You was a huge hit in the 80s, so was Youth Gone Wild and 18 in Life. And Monkey Business and Slave to the Ground were huge hits also off of their second album. And then they had some minor hits with Piece of Me and Wasted Time. Piece of Me is one of my favorite songs by Skid Row for sure. So be sure to add those 7 tracks to your Skid Row playlist now. And we will move on to 7 more deep tracks by Skid Row to add to your playlist. Now, the first song, Big Guns, has received a lot of airplay on satellite radio, and I almost included it in our essentials list, but technically it wasn't a single, and casual fans may not know it, but this is a great song. It is the first track on their debut album, and it is a great rocking tune. So, Big Guns is our first deep track by Skid Row, and we move on to song number 2. I really do not know how this next song wasn't a single or a huge hit in the 1980s. The song fits the genre well and is very radio friendly and is just over 3.5 minutes long. The song is Makin A Mess. It is easily in the top 3 of my favorite Skid Row songs. It's quick, fast, and a great rock and roll song. Makin A Mess, add it to our Deep Tracks playlist, and we move on to song number 3. Right before Making a Mess on the debut album is a song called Here I Am. I think this is at the point where I should say to you that you really should check out the whole Skid Row debut album. Every song on that first Skid Row album is phenomenal. Maybe I'll do a deep dive on the first 2 Skid Row albums and give a rating to each track, but for now, add Here I Am as another great song off the debut album to our Deep Tracks playlist. It is fast, it is heavy, and it has a great hook. So we'll add it to our Deep Tracks playlist, and we move on to song number 4. So our next song on our list comes from the Slave to the Grind album, and technically it wasn't even on that album. Beggar's Day was a bonus track on the Japanese edition, and it also replaced a song called Get the F Out on the clean version of the album. I don't know how the song was left off the final print of Slave to the Grind. It is an amazing song. I love it. Great guitar, great lyrics, great hooks, great everything. So be sure to check out Beggar's Day, and we will add it to our Deep Tracks playlist and move on to song number 5. Continuing with our Slave to the Grind songs is song number 5, The Threat. One thing I love about Skid Row is the lyrics. While a lot of bands in the 80s and 90s were talking about partying, Skid Row had some unique songs, and a lot of it had to do with their lyrics. They didn't cover the normal rock topics, and The Threat is one of those songs. Check it out. It's got great guitars, a great chorus, and Voc's voice is great in it. So add The Threat to our checklist and our deep track list for Skid Row, and we move on to song number 6. So our last song from Slave to the Grind is Riot Act. This is a shorter song at just 2 minutes and 40 seconds. It is fast and one of Skid Row's louder songs. It again has great guitars, great lyrics, and again, Bach's voice is awesome in it. So Riot Act is added to our list, and we check out our final Skid Row deep track song. So I'm going to go back to Skid Row's debut album for song number 7. It is Sweet Little Sister. Sweet Little Sister follows big guns on the album and is a good rock and roll song. It flows really well and is a quick 3-minute song, so be sure to check that one out. And we will add Sweet Little Sister to our deep tracks list, and there you have it. 7 deep tracks by Skid Row you should be listening to. Now, we combine our list together to make our Skid Row Deep Tracks Ultimate Playlist. And I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you think of our list and more tracks by Skid Row we should have considered. And remember to list some tracks from the later albums for me to listen to in the post-Sebastian Bach era. Anyways, that's it for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, keep on rocking.